Good evening, dear friends and colleagues. Only 2 days ago, I had made a promise via my Facebook update that I would indeed do a video today, Friday evening after work, the 28th of May 2021. And what's the reason for the video this time? Well, briefly do a recap of events that have happened in the week to give my own opinion and then ultimately to examine activities which have been credited to Mr. Joe Igbokwe, who people like to call Engineer Joe Igbokwe, a one-time spokesperson for APC in Lagos, uh, special advisor to the governor at different times, and presently special advisor to Governor Sanwo-Olu on matters relating to drainages. Now, what has he done this time? I'm doing this video as a legal practitioner and I'm trying to enlighten on the law and exactly the implication of what Engineer Joe Igbokwe has done this time. A background to this would be the Constitutional Amendment Review Panel, which are sat in Lagos, while some of us think that it is more practicable to amend the constitution at this time, others whom I respect consider that we must change the constitution altogether. Well, at that sitting in Lagos, on the first day of sitting, there was the scenario where it was alleged that Mrs. Remi Tinubu, the senator representing Lagos Central at the Senate, called a woman a thug. I watched that video and I didn't know whether it was a thug she mentioned or a dog. But I asked my colleague who had gone to present a memorandum like we had promised to the committee to tell me exactly what happened. I'm going to share a bit on what we thought regarding the amendment of the Constitution. We said that Nigeria requires to adopt the unicameral legislature where we don't have two chambers of legislature at the National Assembly. We believe that soon Nigerians would have to choose whether they want to retain the Senate or the House of Representatives. It doesn't make any sense for us to have 109 senators at the National Assembly while we also have an average of 10 members of House of Representatives spread over 36 states. We have a total of 360 members of the House of Representatives, and you ask yourself whether they truly represent the interest of Nigerians. So we put in a memorandum that Nigeria must return or Nigeria must adopt the unicameral legislature. Bicameral legislature, which we imported, has since become outdated, and we do not have the resources to do this. We must cut cost of governance, and it's not about firing political aides like the governor who has an oddly opened the door for an oddly has done in Kaduna State. Instead, we need to cut down on the number of legislators we have at the National Assembly. We also think that physically challenged people, vulnerable persons such as women and children cannot be considered to be taken care of through a Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. No, they don't deserve philanthropy. What they deserve is equal rights as those who consider themselves able-bodied. So we think that children, women, and those living with disabilities have been neglected in matters arising in Nigeria. Therefore, a separate ministry is created for them, not out of philanthropy or humanitarianism. Instead, they should enjoy equal rights as other Nigerians. We also put in our memorandum that Nigerians everywhere, irrespective of wherever we are located, in as much as we carry the Nigerian passport, we have an NIN and BVN, should be allowed to vote and be voted for wherever you are all over the world. We do not also think that we should retain state of origin or indigenship or indigeneity as it is known. Instead, wherever you pay your taxes, you are entitled to be integrated into the community and take full benefits. These are some of the ways by which we can create true equality in Nigeria. So we submitted that memorandum to the panel. And this is a true set of events as they happened. The panel had given instructions that nobody should shout, nobody should clap, nobody should distract at the sitting. But there was a lady who was zealous and who was applauding the presentation made by a women's group. And she was asked out of the venue of the sitting, but somehow she got outside and continued to make the noise. So Senator Remi Tinubu stood up from where she was sitting at the high table and went out to challenge this woman. That was when she referred to the woman as a thug. And those were the sequence of events. One thing I know and one thing we should learn from all of this is that as political office holders, it is important for us to rein in our temperament. I have been a victim of Mrs. Remi Tinubu's anger before, and she has become notorious for this activity at the floor of the National Assembly, in private life, and at other public events, including this one. So even her presence at the panel, my colleague was a bit nervous whether she was going to be able to present that memorandum. And even after she did, Mrs. Remi Tinubu still asked her for her name. So if we want people to be free and independent to share their thoughts, to be fairly heard according to matters which concern them, it is important that we eschew intimidation. And that is a lesson that she must learn. Back to Joe Igbokwe and EndSARS, which is the real reason why I'm doing this video. I don't need to regale you with the unfortunate incidents during and after the 20th of October 2020. We all know what happened with the EndSARS. I saw a couple of videos, and as I was watching live, the shots rang in my head. So no doubt shots were fired at the EndSARS sitting. Even the governor of Lagos State, Governor Sanwo-Olu, could not defend himself on CNN when he was questioned about the incidents there. Till today, the government of Sanwo-Olu will be measured by that singular incident, no matter what. And in a couple of months to come, he will have to give account as to exactly what happened at Lekki Toll Gate. A symbolic incident, an incident that enabled, an incident that youth seized as the opportunity to be able to make their voices heard. It was trampled upon, they were infiltrated, it was destroyed, totally mutilated, so much so that we almost lost sight of the rationale behind the EndSARS movement in the first place. It has, no doubt, with its good intentions, brought about some changes, where some people who have been victims of SARS have been compensated. I've been victim too in my family. I've represented clients at SARS in Ikeja, and I know the horrible things that they went through. Now, the governor has tried to manage the situation by raising a judicial panel. And part of those sitting at that panel is Ebonlu Adegboru ICN, who is a learned senior advocate and my senior at the bar. Now, it also has Segun Awosanya, who is my friend, as panelist. And day in, day out, a retired Justice Okobi continues to take evidence at that panel. Several people have given evidence. Now, it is more or less a court, because its findings would be made public, upon which will determine what the administration of Governor Sanwo-Olu will do with it. They've made pronouncements, they've awarded compensations, and people have received compensations as a result of dehumanizing treatment they've received regarding the law enforcement agencies. Now, I lay this background so that we will realize that the job of that panel is noble, is sacrosanct, and it is delicate. Everybody who has had a grouse or two with the way EndSARS protests were handled have submitted to the panel. The Nigerian Armed Forces have made representations at the panel. The panel has issued bench warrants where it deems fit. The panel continues to take evidence. As of today, that panel is still sitting. Now, I take it to this culprit who has committed a crime, and it will seem as if all of us are keeping quiet. But I'd like for us to share this video so that we will know he's committed a crime. We are following it up with an official correspondence next week to the panel. Now, Engineer Joe Igbokwe makes it his problem to meddle in things that do not concern him. He's a meddlesome interloper in its grand form. That is who he is. He is unable to separate professional calling from politics. Neither does he have absolutely any respect at all for judicial panel. He talks as though he's learned or studied law. But I have no iota of doubt in my mind that he will make a very woeful lawyer. There's no doubt about that. He lacks manners, he lacks tact, he lacks courtesy. And with his latest pronouncements, he has successfully woven the web of contempt against himself And I'm going to explain to you why. Nobody, not even a serving judge of Lagos State, can make any pronouncements concerning that judicial panel as it is sitting today. That panel is drawn from different sectors of the society to ensure that there's some fairness, to ensure that there's some balance with respect to how people will perceive the incidents of the EndSARS. It's a fact-finding panel, and pronouncements will be made. Guess what Mr. Joe Igbokwe did during the week? Using his social media, using his Facebook, he went to town and said that that panel had come out with a verdict and that nobody was killed at the toll gate. Mr. Joe Igbokwe used his Facebook medium, his personal Facebook account, to broadcast to the public, to publish a statement that the panel had arrived at a verdict that nobody was killed at the Lekki toll gate. Now, if he had expressed it as his personal opinion to say he did not think anybody was killed, there wouldn't have been a problem. But he attributed that statement as emanating from that panel. What Mr. Joe Igbokwe has done is to come in contempt of that panel. If he has any lawyers, he should go and seek counsel, because he may well be on his way to prison. The panel made no pronouncement. Mr. Joe Igbokwe lied. Mr. Joe Igbokwe put the panel under immense pressure by publishing a falsehood, a total falsehood, that the panel had reached a verdict. There's something called sub judice. It means that when a matter is being adjudicated upon by a competent court of jurisdiction, nobody can make any pronouncements regarding it. Mr. Joe Igbokwe messed up with this elementary law. Elementary common sense will teach him that you don't make pronouncements on existing matters in court, not to talk of lying about the comments coming out from that court. The court never at any time appointed Mr. Joe Igbokwe to go out into the public to lie, to distort information. What he has done at this time is to incite the public, is to publish falsehood, and to ensure that the panel will come under pressure as a result of a falsehood which he cooked up in the recesses of his room. Now, that panel, even though it has not made a public pronouncement, a member of the panel, Mr. Ebolu Adegboruwa, senior advocate, reported that the panel had never arrived at a verdict. And this was again published by several newspapers. And he said Mr. Joe Igbokwe should know better. No, but Mr. Joe Igbokwe never knows better. He thrives on assuming the role onto himself that he can guarantee the best life, the best deal for those from the eastern part of the country in Lagos. He has never been able to achieve that other than to hold them hostage. He has continued to feed them lies, spreading propaganda, and benefiting from unfair treatment meted out to people from the east in Lagos State. You may ask me how I know this. They trade at Ladipo. Go and look at the previous appropriation. I challenge the governor of Lagos State, who has been part of this administration since 1999, to show and prove to Lagosians that there have never been funds appropriated for a pedestrian bridge at Aswani or at Ladipo Market. If you go to Iba, if you go to Ojo, if you go to Ajegunle, if you go to areas predominantly lived in by people from the east, they suffer from decadent infrastructure. And there's no doubt about that. If you go to Amuwo Odofin, where you find them doing their business and living in, you will experience huge infrastructural deficit, bad roads. They don't have anywhere to do business. Wherever you find the Igbo person doing business in Lagos, they are probably doing that against huge challenges. Mr. Joe Igbokwe parades himself as if he's the ambassador in Lagos and that he's the one who can give them the best deal. He has never been able to achieve this since his foray into Lagos politics. Yet, the eminent jurist is sitting with distinguished members of panel, and Mr. Joe Igbokwe can run his mouth about some errand that they never sent him to say that that panel had arrived at a verdict. It should be cited for contempt. That contempt is ex facie curiae. It is outside the presence of the court. But the court has a responsibility to cite him for contempt. And we are going to write an official correspondence in that regard. We are going to seek directives from the panel. If the panel says that we should issue Form 48 or Form 46 as may be applicable with respect to contempt, that is what we will do. Because if the panel does not officially make any pronouncement regarding this despicable act of Mr. Joe Igbokwe, which he does, he lies, he concocts falsehood, he embarrasses people with lies, and he constructs lies to distract from the main issues. Nobody sent him to make a pronouncement. He came out with a lame excuse that his Facebook page was hijacked. That needs to be investigated by the Nigerian police. The panel needs to direct the Nigerian police to investigate whether truly his social media account, Facebook in particular, was hacked. Mr. Joe Igbokwe by himself published on his own portal. Till today, he has not rendered an apology. Till today, he has not publicly owned up to having done something that dastardly. Now today, many of the youths who were participants in the NSAS will lose any sort of confidence that they have left in that panel. Because a man ran his mouth. A man in his 60s did not know when to keep quiet. He could not delineate between politics and being a gentleman or being a patriotic Nigerian for that matter of fact. He lost every respect for that panel. He ridiculed his employer and the governor of Lagos State, Governor Sanwo-Olu, who has made him a special advisor. He ridiculed all of this and brought them to nothingness. He became contemptuous in front of that panel. By lying, by standing by the lies he had told, and by telling another lie that his Facebook page was hacked. And so this video is dedicated to him because we are going to encourage that panel to cite him for contempt. It is supposed to set an example so that people would have some kind of confidence left in our judiciary, so that people will believe in that panel to be unbiased. If tomorrow that panel comes out and gives its verdict in its report that indeed nobody was killed at that Lekki toll gate, it will be because Mr. Joe Igbokwe had spoken into the mouth of those panel members. If the panel arrives that indeed people were killed at that toll gate, Mr. Joe Igbokwe has already distorted the facts such that people will question that verdict at the end of the day. What he has done is criminal, it's not civil, and it's not something that can be sorted or settled out of court. He needs to face the criminal charges of contempt. And so we must call out the Attorney General of Lagos State. In fact, the first thing which he must do is to resign his appointment as special advisor in charge of drainages, because as an official of Lagos State government, he has ensured that there is no longer any independence for that panel because of the utterances he published to millions of people all over the world. A certain Zara Onyinye, someone who likes to also make public commentaries on behalf of the APC, picked that information and started sharing it on our own Facebook page as well. That the panel had arrived at its official report that nobody was killed or nobody died at Lekki toll gate. In case you do not know, Mr. Joe Igbokwe is not only an APC member, he's a government, he's an appointed public official, a member of the executive in Lagos State. And as a member of the executive in Lagos State, he has impeded with the activities of the judiciary by his pronouncements. He has destroyed any legacy of separation of powers nor rule of law. These are criminal acts which must be investigated and it must be brought to book. So we all must share this video. We still believe that the panel can arrive at a just report. We believe that that panel can arrive at the finding of truth, irrespective of this unworthy, this unnecessary distraction from a man whom Ebun Adegbolu, SAN also said, should have known better. It does not know better because all he knows how to do is to cook up propaganda and practice politics with everything, including lives of youths who protested at that Lekki toll gate. And this is the summation of my video this week. That next week, we are going to officially write to that panel to cite Engineer Joe Igbokwe for contempt. We are going to write to the governor of Lagos State that Mr. Joe Igbokwe should be relieved of his appointment and his comments should be investigated. And newspaper houses should take note of this. If we don't make an example of this, then people will never respect our courts again. Anybody will open their mouths and ensure that our judiciary never enjoys the independence it requires. Thank you very much for viewing. Thank you for sharing. And let us bring Mr. Joe Igbokwe to book. He's not only a liar, he's a contemptor. Thank you and have a great weekend.